Over the last 5 years, especially after the pandemic, I've been watching people combine various items of clothing together which was unheard or unthought of before. Nowadays it's become quite fashionable to wear white or even colorful sneakers with a beautifully cut suit. No longer one got to wear the lovely Italian leather shoes with the suit. And it's pretty much in. That's the fashion. It's a very unusual combination, but it's working, keeping people comfortable on their feet and at the same time actually starting a trend. Similarly, in food, we sometimes associate certain spices or certain add-ons or certain kind of flavors with food items which have been traditionally been eaten like that. And we think of breakfast, lunch, dinner. Sometimes we think of a snack with cocktails, or sometimes we think of a mid-morning snack. But beyond that, it's food experimentation becomes a little stifled because we think that it will not go well. Well, today I'm going to show you how to go beyond the fire. Stay true to our brand and look at how one can make unusual combinations work. So to start with, we'll do what you always do for starting a mutton dish. We are going to take some oil, but in this case I'm going to take a mix. I'm going to do a bit of an experimentation too. I'm going to mix mustard oil and sesame oil. Mustard oil to get the mutton to sing properly, and the sesame oil to give it a bit of a nutty flavor. And the nutty flavor will also play along with another element which we are going to put in, and which is walnuts. So walnuts other than giving a taste or imparting a taste to a dish, they also give it a bit of a color, and it's not just brown, it's blackish brown. So does coffee, so does black pepper, and so would some of the spices that I use all the time. So let's start off. The mustard oil is in, it started getting heated. Let me pick up my staple salt and pepper and show you all the ingredients. So here is the mutton which we had marinated last night with olive oil and salt and curd, yogurt, nothing else. It was marinated and kept overnight. Now this is the longest time that you normally would marinate for, because typically to create a mutton dish or a mutton dish with rice or pulao, you would typically marinate for less than 2 hours, 1.5 hours or 1 hour is good enough. But in this case, what we are trying to do is slightly different. We are trying to make the mutton as soft and pliant as possible, because other than cooking it in the onion, we would also cook it in a concoction of coffee and cocoa. So we want everything to go inside. We needed the mutton to open up all the enzymes within the mutton to break down as much as possible before it reaches the cooking table. At this time, I think I need the help of my friend here to save me from some of these oil splatters. And as we said, unusual combinations work. A blue shirt and a brown apron would be looking out of place 20 years back, but no longer, and we are cooking a brown dish anyway. As the onion starts getting cooked, I'm going to add a little more mustard oil. We're going to do everything in this pot only. So again, a one pot meal. You can choose a heavy bottomed cast iron, Dutch oven or any other cast iron pot which has a cover. just so that its heat handling and heat holding capability is very high. Otherwise, you'll end up all the time cooking it cooking it by interfering it with the dish, whereas we can now also leave it to stew after a little while. Now, what are we going to add to this? We're going to add again a very special ingredient. I'll bring it out in a moment. We're going to add a little alcohol, a little brandy, entirely optional, but I want to add it at this point, about 90 ml of it. What this will do is to actually deglaze the bottom and also temper the onion, making it sweeter. The sweetness of the brandy and the carbohydrates within the onion have started intermingling, kind of tanginess with the onion and making it mellowed. This is the time to bring in the meat. And this is when the meat starts getting a bit of the flavor of the brandy. So what we would do at this point of time is to prepare the bouquet garni. Take some of these dry masala, all the spices which are whole spices, star anise and cinnamon. So I would actually not take any cardamom here, because cinnamon goes very well with coffee. Star anise holds it all together. So this is going to be more cinnamony than many other dishes that you see me cooking. Have you had cinnamon flavored coffee? If you have, do mention in the comments, and where did you find the best cinnamon flavored coffee? Extremely fond of coffee myself, all the time going in search of great coffee joints all over the world. So if you have found some lovely cinnamon flavored coffee somewhere, do let me know. In goes the black pepper, my favorite at this time, quite dry. The pan has become reasonably dry now, and this is when the black pepper's flavor. What I will do at this time is I'll just close it for about a couple of minutes and then let the flavors collect before I move on to the next phase, which is infusing the coffee. I have some coffee here, so you can use any instant coffee. So I'm using a decaffeinated version of the coffee. I'm not using any garlic, as you can see, because again there will be conflict, but I'm going to use some pinches of ginger, grated ginger. I'm going to give it a bit of a heat with red chili flakes, some fresh heat with the green chilies, which will be swirling around, some color, dark color with the red paprika, and then I'm going to mix the two major ingredients, which is coffee with a little bit of cocoa powder. This is unsweetened cocoa powder, and I'm going to use it to hold the coffee together so that you get a bit of a much smoother interface. Well, it's ready. The smells are coming through. Now to use water. So I'm using about 350 grams of mutton. So maybe about half a liter of water, because a lot of the water will evaporate. So I'm using a good amount of water here, about half a liter, or about between 500 to 700 ml. And now we'll let, as the mutton now gets infused with the water, you can see the color changing. It's already turning brown because of the caramelization. Now is the time to add the cocoa powder. So in goes about 3 tablespoonfuls of cocoa powder. We'll blend that in a bit, and the mutton now starts getting infused with it as it starts boiling, whenever this starts bubbling and infusing the flavors. I've also got a little bit of honey here, and I'm going to put some honey at this point of time. Not much, just enough to make sure that the bitterness of the coffee which I'm going to put in And this is the point where I start with the salt. It's good to put salt and sweet. This is going to be reasonably bitter and sweet with the honey, so I'm going to put about two teaspoonfuls of salt. The mutton already had some remnants of salt from the marination. Therefore, I'm not going to go overboard with the salt at this point of time. Now, important thing for the entire thing to do now is to come to boil before I add the coffee. So what we are going to do is we are going to rely on the boiling water and the pressure created by the sealing off to get this in. Some ginger. So ginger and cinnamon are essentially the two spices here that we are using. So once it's boiled and you put the coffee, I've also got a bit of castor sugar to adjust if it is required, if the balance has to be brought back. It started boiling, so what I'll do is I'll cover it up, leaving a little gap for some of it to dry down, and we will let it do this for the next 5 to 7 minutes. The kind of foods which are intriguing are the ones which use unusual ingredients. So if you infuse a beverage with a protein, if you look up some very rare herbs, like I've gone up about 9,000 feet in the Himalayas and I've obtained a couple of very rare herbs and I'm still experimenting with them. They're amazing in nature, but they're difficult to use in food. Herbs like jambu faran and gandharai, and they can sometimes be used in place of the traditional herbs when cooking meat or vegetables. Food which has got cultural undertones, food which has got similarities across countries. The gastronomy is behind them, whether it is sauce based or spice based or kind of molecular gastronomy playing within. So these are the kind of things which interest me. So roughly everything, but the why and the how behind. So let's check what's happening. Well, who would have thought that this is a bowl of mutton cooking? It looks like a hot chocolate brewing for the end of the day. Well, I'm going to reduce the heat a bit now, bring it back to a simmer and start adding coffee. So now you see the cocoa has already done its magic with the color. What the coffee is doing to the boiling liquid is now it's going to infuse its bitter but very, very distinctive flavor. And I'm being generous with it. But this is, after all, a coffee cocoa mutton, and here it is coming in. As you can see, the reason I am adding coffee later is that coffee is congealing wherever it is falling. It's important that it gets into a dynamically bubbling liquid, because if I had put it earlier, it would have got concentrated maybe on a couple of pieces of meat or at the side of the pan. And if you realize what is it's doing, it's also boiling the mutton into submission. But instead of boiling in its own juices or stock or water, the mutton is boiling in a mixture of coffee and cocoa and honey. And there are a couple of things to put in now. I'm going to put in the walnuts now. As I said, the walnut, which looks like the brain of an individual, is a very unique and lovely dry fruit, because it not only tastes nice, it's a little oily, it becomes rancid if it becomes too old, so it has to be fresh all the time, and as you can see, it has to look dry. It also imparts color. One can make hair dye from the husk of the walnut, and it's pretty common to do that in many places of the world, because ultimately this is going to be a mutton and gravy and nothing else. Well, not exactly, but I'll leave it at that till we come to that stage. So now I start adding the chili, the red chili powder to give it a bit of a lift in heat, a bit of red chili powder, which normally I use it for garnishing. In this case, I'm doing it for color. The color has to not only be brown, but it has to be a very nice and bright shade of brown. otherwise it will not be appetizing. What is your favorite as far as color is concerned, and how would you really impart interesting colors to food? We don't want to use artificial colors ever, so it is important to understand which are the different natural food items which can impart color. So now this has to be cooked down a bit. I want it to go down, not remain a large volume of liquid, but the large volume of liquid also required to cook down the mutton, and that's very important. My favorite pastime, I keep adding whole black peppers to everything. And isn't it a very unusual looking dish? Well, what does this look like? Does it look like coffee or cocoa? Or does it look like a mutton gravy? I'm sure not the latter, not yet, but it will. While we think modern diseases have come in and they are invading our life space because of our lifestyle, well, a lot of infectious diseases which used to kill people, pretty much the waterborne, much lesser endemics and pandemics, well, they have lessened down, they're almost forgotten now. Well, the dish is almost done, almost finished, and it is at this time that we introduce some of the other small garnishes. And I'm going to now put in a little bit of sugar, castor sugar. While I like to have black coffee myself, well, I can't expect everyone to like the bitterness of coffee. So in goes about 1.5 tablespoons of castor sugar, almost 2. And along with it, a little more honey. Honey will bring a new depth to the sweetness, while the castor sugar now counters the bitterness of coffee. So turn it around a bit. So it's going to be bitter, it's going to be a little bit sweet at some places, it's going to taste dense umami because of the meat. It's also going to be a trifle hot because of the red chili flakes. I think it's done. Now I'm going to thicken the gravy just a little and temper it down by using a bit of very small amount of rice flour. So this rice flour will now thicken the whole dish and make it ready for serving. Still bubbling away very beautifully, and you can see the bubbles. Just as you'd like a very foamy cup of coffee. This coffee has a natural tendency, if it's under pressure, to form a foam which is called crema. And the same thing is happening here. Let me demonstrate. I keep it under pressure, let the pressure develop. As the pressure develops, the coffee granules give off that crema, which is the foamy layer. And you will see suddenly that the level has come up. 1, 2, 3. There you are. The foam's forming at the edges. If you keep it long enough, it will do that. Okay, so the dish is ready. So here we are. Now to add color to it, because it also has to look good. So I'm going to add a bit of cherry tomatoes. Cherry tomatoes are naturally slippery at the top. They'll provide a bit of a relief while biting, as well as they don't get colored easily. Some makhana to lighten the dish, and finally some greens with which we can garnish when we serve. So let's start serving. So this is the coffee layered, coffee flavored mutton. Almost looks like seared barbecued meat, doesn't it? You can see the walnuts featured here, some makhanas, top it off, some more fresh cherry tomatoes, a fresh green chili here, and some greens, some parsley too. So here we are, the famous coffee cocoa mutton from beyond the fire. I, Dr. Joydeep Roy, am greatly pleased to present to you a dish of conflicting and unusual combinations, something which signifies all the things that you eat or drink from morning as you wake up to right down to bedtime, all in one plate. Happy eating, and don't forget to like and subscribe, and tell us what you feel. If you cook this and eat, do not forget to tell us how you feel and anything that can go on to improving it. Thank you very much.